Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 7 o'clock. And here we are for the Londonderry Town Council meeting on June 11th, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing. Tonight I'd like us all to have good thoughts and prayers for the people in Illinois who were at the July 4th parade and got the surprise of their lives, and some of them didn't survive. So for those people tonight and their families. Thank you.
Is anything happening with the group?
Not really.
Okay.
They're trying to figure out the stuff.
Okay.
That's basically it.
So we got a couple of things here tonight. First, as part of public comment, I have a few things I'd like to go through. One is that on Friday afternoon, I received a call from our assistant town manager, Lisa Drabick, and she let me know that she is going to be resigning and going on to take on the impossible task of 1,300 people and at the HR director in Manchester. So hopefully she'll go fix Manchester for us. And just wanted to take a few minutes to tell her thank you. We're going to work out what that transition is going to look like over the next 4 to 6 weeks, and wanted to just take this public time to say thank you for all your help. Thank you for everything you've done over the last 5.5 years. You've been a real asset to the community. You've added a lot, and brought. We're far better off for your service than we were before. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Another person asked me if they could speak during public comment, and that would be Chief William Hart Jr. He's been chief here for about 13 years. Bill may remember, I think we've talked about this before, that I met him about 30 years ago when he was the prosecutor. And then subsequently did not see him for a number of years, which was probably a good thing at that point, even though, you know what prosecutors do, right? But it wasn't me he was prosecuting. It was someone else, and I happened to be there.
Glad you cleared that up.
But I saw him many years later when we were in the old police station, and which was on the grounds that were here, and it was the old town hall. And I had gone on a tour with Sergeant Murphy and with my daughter's first grade class, and really couldn't believe the level of, areas that were not secure. It was obvious it was an old building converted from something else to be a police station. And I took the time to contact the Derry News and ask them to take a look at it, and that we really need to get a new police station. So they wrote this article. They brought it to Chief Ryan and to Captain Hart. And the feedback that the reporter gave me was no, just let it go the way it is. Because it basically said, it's time for a change. It's time, to do things another way. Well, as we go through many changes here in Londonderry, Bill is going to retire on August 5th. And again, like Lisa, we're far better served by his service than we were before. Joe Ryan was a great chief. Bill followed in his footsteps, which was the impossible task. And then, grew the department to 68 sworn officers, to clear national recognition, and to be able to have what we feel is one of the finest law enforcement agencies in the state. So with that, Chief Hart.
I don't really have a lot to say. I know you guys are busy tonight. Mr. Chair, members of the council, Mr. Town Manager, Madam Assistant Town Manager, soon to be Manchester Mucky Muck. Is that your actual title?
Yes, that's the actual title. Thank you.
30 years ago, I started here as the prosecutor, and prosecutors generally do pretty well at things, Michael. We have a good history here. But what I came to say is this. Thank you. Thank you to this town. when I came here 30 years ago, July 1st, 1992, I didn't think that, as Frank Holdsworth just pointed out to me, that it would be the first time I ever held a job for longer than a couple of years. But I've devoted my life to this town, and proud to have done so. Proud to have worked with the various council members like Ms. Paul and Joe, Jim, Chad, welcome, and John. We've been friends for a long time. It's been a good run, and I want to say thank you very much for the support this town gave me and for the opportunities that it gave me. I am certainly better for it. So thank you very much to the town of Londonderry and you who represent her so well. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in public comment. Is there anyone else who would like to have anything to say to the council? If you really want to follow that. Yes, young man, may we have your name and address, please?
Daniel Bouchard, O'Connell Drive, Londonderry. When we collect the taxes in town, okay, does that money just go into a non-bearing interest account or anything like that?
Are
What
you
happens
asking
to
what the deposit process is, or
Yeah,
how,
yeah.
or are you asking how we financially and what accounts we place it in, and how the process is distributing
So we
those
collect-
dollars are?
So we collect, let's say, $3 million in taxes, okay? Where's that money go?
Okay, so what
Are we making money on it, or are we just leaving it into a?
All right, so what you're
non-bearing?
asking is that when we collect this money and it
Yep.
comes into the town clerk's office,
Yep.
obviously it's processed and it goes to the bank.
Correct.
You're asking what happens to it once it arrives at the bank.
Yeah, are we making any money on it?
Yes. I'm not the person to speak at a great level of detail on this. That would be the finance director. But what I can tell you is that we not only budget for interest on investments, but in an economy like this, we sometimes do better than we've anticipated doing. And given the amount of money that we do take in,
Yep.
we do quite well on our investments.
Okay, so my point is this, all right? I send in my taxes on the 27th of June, I mean, okay? I've sent in 2 checks, roughly almost $40,000. They haven't been cleared from the town yet. I called last week to inquire, and they said, well, there's 2 boxes of, tax returns that we haven't processed yet. I guess I'm concerned that we're leaving so much money sitting in a box. I know that 4th of July was here and everything else. And I know that we're always trying to make money. I mean, take my money as soon as you get it. All right? But if you have 2 boxes of, tax returns that you haven't processed, I think the town's losing money on it. And when I look at my account,
So for clarification purposes, processed is when you pay. So they're processed immediately. The question you're asking is when does the bank recognize them?
no, I'm saying they're not processed, John, because when I look at my information on the town website, I am right now being charged late fees on all of my properties that I own. And I'm like, okay, because I wasn't concerned last week. I'm saying, okay, I know sometimes the post office, forgets it and stuff like that, or sends it to the wrong place. But I'm saying 27th of June, I sent it. Today we're July 11th, all right? And I still have late fees on my accounts. My checks have not cleared the bank.
So we're gonna have to check with the tax collector, because I
Yeah.
don't have an answer for you.
Okay, because I'm like,
And the tax collector's not here tonight,
All right.
so
You
we'll
know.
have to check with her.
because I'm one that I like to pay my bills and I like to get them, paid, and it should be out of my account, but it's not.
Oh, Dan,
So-
trust
so
me, we wanna take your money.
I know you, but that was my concern, was like, I need-
And it's not just your money, we want everybody's money.
I know that the town makes money on on the money. So.
Right, so we'll check with the tax
You know,
collector.
it's quite a long time. My other comment was, okay, I know it was the 4th of July and everything, and maybe this is a time that we have to reallocate some resources in, you know, in town and say, okay, this is a important time for us to process these. Maybe we can have somebody else help out. That was my comment.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I can assure you that for purposes of late fees accruing, the tax collector is going by the postmark date on the mailing. And so it is not the case that Mr. Bouchard would be expected to pay late fees for something that came in 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm not concerned that we won't get the late fee thing corrected, in that they're going through a process of collecting over $50 million and processing through and
correct.
making sure it's done correctly and working with the assessing department, and there's probably more steps than I probably understand. But I am sure that they will be corrected and done correctly. But it's a valid question. Let's find out,
Thank you.
why.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
So, on a time frame, Mr. Chairman?
Well, they were due July 6th.
No, our next council meeting, can we have finance come in here and explain exactly how that process works?
Sure.
So the
I mean, our next
taxpayers
council
are
meeting's a month away.
By all means.
Because Dan's probably not the only one,
Sure.
you know? Thank you.
Okay, anyone else for public comment?
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. I live in the Nevins community, but I am not here representing the Nevins. I am here solely representing myself and my husband as landowners in the Nevins. There is negotiations going on between the town and Gilchrist LLC, is that right? Yeah, and I just want it on record that in those negotiations that are going on, I personally, and I know I'm not alone, would like part of the negotiations to be, since that property, that 23 acres, backs up to Nevin's open space property, that part of the negotiations, and I'm saying it publicly because I want it on record, that they be required to put a fence in between their property and the Nevins.
Excuse me for 1 minute. Kim, please come here. I'm sorry. Come here.
Uh-oh.
Well, while John's talking, I know at one point, I think it was 8 years ago, the Conservation Commission had a trail in the back of those that
Right,
ran
that was,
along that property line, and there was a real discrepancy there. So I think it's a good suggestion. We should look at it, make sure there's no problems whatsoever.
right, well, that trail was up close.
Yes,
If
too
this is
close.
if this is the houses, the trail was right here.
Yeah.
I'm talking about from here to the Gilchrist property. In some places, there's 100 feet, and in
Okay.
other places, there's much more. What I'm asking is that part of that negotiations be that up there, they have to put a fence.
So, Mike, this negotiation is terminated, right? We're no longer negotiating with those.
So there, Mr. Chairman, part of the issue here is that this parcel had a conservation restriction on it. And so it was never included in the sewer facilities plan because nobody thought it could be developed. And so there's a lack of available sewer capacity that until this week, I thought had put the whole thing on hold. They are now trying to determine if there is potentially a way to do the project with septic. And I don't have an answer as to what the outcome of those inquiries are. But if you had to ask me today, what is the status of this process? It's a big open question at this point in time.
So the answer is that it may or may not go forward.
Correct.
So if it does go forward, we need to be sensitive to these pieces.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And I
sounds
would-
good.
That's all.
And I would
Thank you.
just point out, Mr. Chairman, as well, that, and I've talked with you about this, Christine, as well, is there was a letter that was received by the town, I think, around the time of the vote.
Right,
back
after,
in the
shortly
winter.
after the vote. No, I
And-
can tell you it was in May. Go
And
ahead.
it was on behalf of the homeowners association. There have been some internal deliberations within the Nevins community, and we did receive a letter dated June 18th that's in my town manager's report. It's at page 22. addressed to the council and myself, rescinding the letter that we previously received. So it doesn't give it any further advice as to the Nevins' position today, but it takes back what was said previously.
That's because the Board of Directors acted totally without any knowledge to any of the residents of the Nevins when they sent that letter.
I can tell you the posture when I was on the planning board, and posture is to continue this on the council, is that we want people to work together to preserve
Absolutely.
privacy for everyone.
Right,
So,
well, this was sent out, and then when the people in the Nevins found out about it, they had a little hissy fit and said, rescind that letter, so.
Real quick question before you leave. You asked for a fence, or look at it. What type of fence did you?
I'm not an expert at that. I was a nurse. I'll talk cardiology to you until you're blue in the face, or hopefully not blue in the face.
Well, the only reason why I say is
no,
that
no pun intended?
a
I just
stock-
came up with that, too. That's not bad.
a screen fence, like a stockade fence,
Some
or a
type of
chain
fence.
link fence?
Anything that's going to perhaps, one of the concerns is people coming through, people putting,
Okay.
if you look behind us on Constitution in the woods in there, there's a lot of we don't want the land, fire started on it, things built on it, and we really don't want people coming through that to where we are.
Okay.
Okay, because it is land owned by the Nevins. It's not town land. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Understood. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for the interruption. I just asked the deputy chief to go find out, because I was notified that there is a working fire on Sims Drive. All stations were dispatched, mutual aid from Bedford, Derry, and Manchester, and that is the Coke plant that has a working fire. So just so you know why I asked for the deputy chief to come and talk to me.
Coke
Yes?
plant's number 7.
Yes.
Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive. Appreciate you allowing me to speak. In regards to this property on Gilchrist, there's a lot of work transpiring right now, not this minute, but already has taken place on a piece of property that has been designated as conservation land. There's a lot of open-ended questions here that I think Mr. Malaguti kind of alluded to. And we got to be very careful how we proceed here. Apparently, we, the town, came up with over $1 million for Massetti so that he would not build on the property. And now, apparently, he's decided he wants to build on the property. But we have a lot of unanswered questions here. And now they're going in there and basically putting roads in there. Well, maybe they're not roads. Pretty well clearing and digging in there because they want to see if they can put in septic systems. Who gave them a right to do this? Who gave them a right to do this? Who from the town said it's okay to go in there and start digging on this property, which is conservation land, technically? And they don't own it yet. And, well, apparently Massetti does own the property.
So little correction of history. First of all, the property was sold to Elmer. The property was Elmer Pease. So at the time before the Nevins was built, they wanted to build a nursing home, an assisted living facility, and 300 apartments. Yep. This went to ballot by special election for approximately $2.8 or $2.9 million. The townspeople decided to buy the land.
Oh.
The townspeople decided to buy the land, and also have this piece of land still remain in the property of Mr. Elmer Pease. Mr. Elmer Pease subsequently sold the land to the current developer. They own whatever Mr. Pease sold them with regards to that. The ballot issue is a whole nother issue because all they really bought was development rights. So with regards to anything else that is going on, happy to take that at another time, with the planning department, with the environmental engineers, and walk through whatever it is that they're doing. And I appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Is it a brownfield site or not?
That site? No, that's not a brownfield site. The EPA brownfield site is in another area.
And
It's,
Wait a minute, I think somebody
what-
might have something to say about that.
well, the EPA brownfield site is actually behind Tinkham's.
Wasn't it an apple orchard?
yeah, so this is not part of the groundwater management zone that pertains to the Tinkham Garage.
That is correct. This was a former apple orchard run by Woodmont at one time. So, and that was many, 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 many years ago.
And who owns the Superfund site?
I don't know who owns the Superfund site.
Uh,
This isn't questions and answers
Oh,
here.
okay, yeah,
I
but
don't
you know,
who owns
the point
Superfund
is
site.
this: these are very important questions that we have to know how we're proceeding.
We understand.
Who owns the property? This Superfund, Tinkham Superfund site, is a real problem. Nothing is being done on it. Okay?
With all due respect, sir, it's been monitored since the early '80s, and we get very regular reports on all the things around the Superfund site with regards to the Tinkham Garage. So I don't want to, I understand and I respect what you're saying, and I appreciate the information. Happy to take it offline with you. But
Well-
we're not going to get to the answers here tonight.
Well, and who's going to have a discussion with me in regards to this?
Well, sir, we will have the staff look into it, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just to your point, the Gilchrist parcel is not owned by the town. There is a conservation restriction on it, but it actually remains owned by Massetti. And so there's nothing, so I didn't give permission for anything to be done out there, but I also don't think that they need permission to cut in a path to do a perk test. I don't believe there's anything in the conservation easement that would prevent them from doing it.
So
think we should
again,
look at the
let's
deed.
let's take this offline, and we'll have the environmental engineer look at it, and have your staff look at it, and we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Lee Jeffers. I reside at 16 Crestview Circle, the Vista Ridge condominiums. I'm here tonight because I'm applying for the Heritage Commission, but while I'm here, I wanted to ask the council a quick question. About 4 weeks ago, we were approached by the Manchester Waterworks. A letter went out to all the unit owners at Vista Ridge. Unbeknownst to us, they've been trying to negotiate with our board of directors for at least 8 or 9 months about an easement to get to dig a trench to run a water line from one of their water tanks on Josephine Drive up behind Vista Ridge down to Vista Ridge Drive. Now, I've been in touch with Manchester Waterworks, but I don't have a clear understanding what the real purpose of that water line is for. Can the town tell me what you know about this, what the purpose of that water line is for?
Do we know what that water line's for?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have been engaged in discussions with Manchester Waterworks. They feel strongly about this project. They think it's important not only for water quality in Londonderry, but also in the region. It is intended to address pressure issues and water quality issues associated with the filling and refilling of that tank on Josephine Drive. And I believe there's upsizing of a pipe that's entailed as well. That's how it's been explained to us.
Does that help?
It does. We actually have a meeting set up with Manchester Waterworks on July 18th to further discuss the matter. Unfortunately, our board of directors was not forthcoming with this information, and they voted it down. So we want to have a conversation directly with Manchester Waterworks, but I wanted a better understanding of the real purpose for this water line. So I thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
the purpose of the pipe, is that going to extend into other areas of the town? Is that part of it, or you don't know?
My understanding is it is, as we look to upgrading water infrastructure in Londonderry and in the region, it is desirable from that standpoint. I can't speak to exactly if it might open up new areas. My understanding is it's more of a, my limited understanding of the engineering here is that you always want a loop instead of a dead end when you're talking about water lines. And so this is, I believe, in that vein.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, name and address, please.
Jan McLaughlin, Crestview Circle in Londonderry. And so it's just kind of a general comment, kind of triggered by the previous comments with the Nevins and what have you. The town seems to, and maybe it's better addressed to the Conservation Commission, but I have your, I'm happy to be here tonight for another meeting. So my concern as someone who's lived in town for 36 years, 37 I guess now, is that we seem to have an awful lot of buying conservation rights, doing this, spending money to buy more property and then renting it out for a buck. We seem to spend an awful lot of time. We provide incentives to builders to build something with public access as part of the deal, and then we end up having to take the public access back because the buildings get built wrong or whatever. All of these things happen, time and again, and it seems like, if we're going to have conservation, then we should conserve it. And we shouldn't keep playing the shuffle game. Well, we want to make sure that this fellow can make some money or whatever. That's nice, but we don't guarantee that, and that's not the town's job. The town's job is, we're going to conserve it so we can have some town quality. Yes, we know the town's grown all this amount of time, and now we have 68 police officers. That's wonderful because we've grown so big. But it's nice to have green spaces too. So my concern is, first, our previous house was down by Cross Farm, and that was a prime pathway for wildlife until it wasn't, and it was all of a sudden going to be developed. And at one point, the town owned that property because it had taken it for taxes. So it just seems like we keep going back and forth about. Is it really important to have green space and be able to have wildlife be safe and have our children be able to have green space, or is it not important? And so I'd like to encourage you folks to please not shift conservation property back and forth and back and forth. We need to sometimes, I agree that maybe we need to be able to cut the weeds that are killing all the apple trees, or encourage the cutting of the trees if we don't own it, but it's not, it doesn't help any of us to keep shuffling the properties back and forth. That's all.
So just for clarification purposes, when we purchase something, we purchase it outright, such as the voters decided to buy the land that's next to the town hall here. 5 acres, the front 5 acres was bought by the town. The other 23 acres were in
Bought by
conservation. By state law, when we buy something with conservation dollars, it stays conservation forever.
Okay.
So there has been some ambiguity in the past in which we were buying development rights. About 15 years ago, we stopped buying development rights and said we want to buy the land, so that we would have, conservation would have complete control of the land and not just the development rights. So for example, we own development rights on Sunnycrest, Merrill, and the Mac farmland. So they in order for those to be reversed, they would have to go to the ballot to be reversed and be able to sell back the development rights to somebody. So the voters would have to vote for that to happen. In the example, we bought the land right next to us. Never goes back to the ballot. It's not development rights. So there's a little bit of confusion between what's development rights and what do we own.
Okay.
So that's where the confusion comes about. I think it was in the 60s or 70s, they decided to go forward, and I'm sure Mr. Speltz will correct me if I get this wrong, in developing it through the master plan, the Musquash, which is, over 1,000 acres now and everything. So the intent, even from the early fathers of the government as it changed here, was to preserve that land forever. That has been the intent here for the last 12 to 15 years, is to buy the land, own it, preserve it forever. This development right thing was something that was, I don't know how to say it better than it was experimented with.
And it was cost effective at the time because it was less expensive than buying the property.
Right, but we found out there were some things that weren't as palatable going forward.
And
so I don't know if that answers your question.
that kind of answers it, and that kind of a follow-up is the same thing. I noticed, the new house that's going up on Mammoth Road by the cemetery that's up by Litchfield Road. And, on the other side of that same cemetery, when we have a lack of cemetery space in town, on the other side of that same cemetery, there was a house that was built about 5 to 10 years ago. So it's like, does the town not purchase or get first right of refusal or to even try around the older cemeteries, so that if we need to expand or whatever, that we have the option to be able to, instead of replacing the little trailer that happened to be on that property that they've now put a 5-bedroom house or a 4-bedroom house on, that we could have expanded that cemetery a little bit wider. So if that's something that could be done, at least if it would be nice if they would look into that.
Well, I mean, sadly, part of the issue we have now in town is when you have a piece of land that is able to be developed, and when homes are selling for $600,000 to $700,000 to $800,000, we don't have enough money, and the people can sell that land at a greater profit and be able to it makes it difficult for us to compete. in
Right,
that
but
area.
but if we're not even competing, if we're not even trying to compete, that's the question. Like the property between it's a school thing, but between the high school and the middle school, that was up for sale about 15 years ago, and it sat on the market for a long time, and the school district did nothing. Well, wouldn't it be a great place to build a school district office? Just saying. But we didn't.
You know
So,
what?
anyway.
we could have an hour conversation
So I'm
about
sorry.
that. But
I'm sorry.
But you can ask Mr. Slater. He's on the school board.
John, can I answer her question? When that property next to the cemetery came up, I asked the same question, and I'll tell you what I was told by the manager at the time, and I believe it was Dave Karen. He said that the land was a lot of ledge, and that you couldn't dig, so we couldn't put more graves in there. It wouldn't have been useful to putting in more. So I'm telling you what he told me when I asked this question way back when it was up for sale. I asked that very same question. I believe it was at a town meeting or a deliberative session. I said, why aren't we going after this land? And I was told by the town at the time that it was too rocky, too much ledge, and that we couldn't put any more graves in there if we wanted to. So whether they were telling me the truth, I don't know, but I'm,
Nice foundation they put in the house was pretty good.
I just,
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just amplify what you said, it is a function of money. It's also a function of timing. We don't have a bank account that we can use to buy properties, and so particularly in a market like this, by the time we go and get authority for something like this on the ballot, it's too late.
I understand. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't want to take up a bunch of time here, but there seems to be some confusion about the water tank and the 30-inch line up in North Londonderry. The reason for that is because we got a little problem here in the town of Londonderry with water supply, with fire protection, okay? The water that comes through Londonderry, that fills up those tanks up in North Londonderry, then proceeds to go south to Derry, Wyndham, and Salem, and now it's being backfed to Hampstead Water. I found that out the other day when I go up to Manchester Water and have a discussion, okay? That water is passing through Londonderry. We need to protect our most valuable resources. We should have a natural resource protection, and we don't. It should be in the master plan. What is more important than water? And by the way, a natural resource is more than water. It's also sand and gravel. It's also the watershed. We need to do a better job here. I'm sorry. We need to pay attention. We're going to be talking shortly about Lithia Springs, a great idea, okay? But we need to understand all the water is coming from Lake Massabesic. It's coming down here through North Londonderry. It's coming down Bardwell Road. It's filling up these tanks, 5 million gallons. And then there's a problem when they fired up the pump station in Derry. We have a problem with insufficient fire protection to the schools. If anybody wants to read the reports, they're there. I'm not making this stuff up. We need to protect our most valuable resources. Lithia Springs, which we're going to be talking about here, very important, a great idea. But we need to be careful how that's written up. Because when you get grant money, there are stipulations. When you get the state involved, that's fine. Take money from the state, take money from the federal government. But there are stipulations in that. The water supplier can go directly to the state. They don't have to come to the town. And they can say, I want to take 30,000 gallons a day out of the ground. I want to put artesian wells in here. I want to suck it out, and I want to sell it back to Londonderry. And the state can say, fine, go right ahead and do that. By the way, I guess we got a fire up in Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola uses more water than anybody. That's fine. A lot of that water comes out of those water tanks. We got a little problem with Pennachuck water, okay? I've brought it up several times. We got a line up here, an 8-inch line, needs to be replaced, and nobody wants to talk about it.
Sir, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, given that he raised something about Lithia Springs, I do want to correct the record. I've never seen a grant agreement with the state of New Hampshire that allows the state to draw water out from a town-owned conservation property and do something commercial with it. That would surprise me a great deal.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in public comment. Unless I see anyone else, we're going to close public comment and move forward. Public comment is closed. I would accept a motion to open a public hearing for ordinance 2022-06, an amendment to Title V of the Public Health and Safety Welfare Chapter, Animal Control.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are now open.
Mr. Chairman, this amendment that you have before you grew out of complaints that the town clerk had been receiving about what we refer to as vicious or at-large dog offenses. And what those are is either dogs attacking dogs attacking people, or dogs running around off-leash and causing a nuisance. There is a state statute that is at play in this area. That state statute is not a full leash law. In fact, most communities in the state do not have a full leash law. That being said, a community has the ability to be more restrictive than state law and to institute a leash law, or to do something in between. And that is what this proposed ordinance does that you have in front of you tonight. It attempts to tighten up some of the definitions. It is a general rewrite and improvement of some of the language. It does not institute a full leash law, but it does drop some ambiguous language, and I think solves a few problems that have arisen in the past and that might arise in the future.
Questions from the council? Okay, while I wait on the council, questions from the public?
Sherry Farrell, your town clerk. Mike, thank you. You did a great job of explaining the amendment to this ordinance, and I wanted to thank quite a few people. I tried to gather information from many different sources, and Elise Greco, who is here in the audience with me tonight, Pam Dolan, both just residents of the community. Mike Malaguti was invaluable, Mark Morrison, Kim Bernard, and there was just so many people that weighed in on this. And then Mike somehow took the mess that I handed him of so many ideas and came up with this amendment, which, as Mike said, it's not a leash law. We're not a city, but the idea is that we have to gain control of the dogs, and really it's ultimately the residents' responsibility. You know, dogs are animals, but we have to be responsible for them, and that's what we believe this amendment will do for us. On a real positive note, though, since I first approached you a couple months ago about this, we were getting calls, every day, many calls, many emails, police department, our department, and it really seemed endless, and that's why I brought this to your attention. But I think public awareness, and I have to thank our residents, they listened. They really listened, and I think they helped each other and watched out. And I don't want to jinx us, but we've really had very few calls in the last, couple weeks. And, summertime, you never know which way this is going to go. But if we all work together on it and bring awareness, we can keep everyone safe. And, especially our children, all of us, and our elders in town, too. But that was the role of this amendment, so I hope that you'll agree to it. And then, Elise, if you'd like to come up to say a few words, too.
Hi,
Please name and address.
Elise Greco, 187 Pillsbury Road. Not good at public speaking, so I'm gonna go through these notes here. I've had a dog walking business in town for 6 years, just over 6 years actually. It's very rare that I call animal control. I'm responsible for up to 20 dogs a day, sometimes more. And most of my business is in Londonderry and Hudson, Pelham, the surrounding towns. I will say our animal control is definitely lacking. There have been multiple occasions where I have called animal control about loose dogs, and some of them have been the same dogs 3 or 4 times. Nothing's been done. I've gotten, I'm not really confident to call them. Honestly, I've talked to Sherry. I've been wanting to call Hudson Animal Control because I have a good relationship with her, and I know that she would respond, but obviously she can't respond to a call in Londonderry. A lot of my clients trust me to give them advice if they're struggling with their animals, or if they're having issues with loose dogs, they'll ask me for my advice, and I'm kind of hesitant for them to call animal control because off the top of my head, I can think of at least 4 of my customers that have been told, if you're having issues with these same dogs coming at your dog while it's on a leash, then you shouldn't walk in that area, which isn't really a solution. If I'm taking a dog out of their house, I'm not going to drive it to another neighborhood to avoid potentially having someone else's dog attack my customer's dog. I'm responsible for that dog, so it would be on me, and I would feel pretty bad if they got injured. So I think if we have these fines in place for people's dogs that are, going after other people's dogs over and over again, those fines we should be fining them. We shouldn't just be a slap on the wrist, and animal control should be going out to those houses, or it's just going to keep happening. So that's just my take on it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else from the public on this particular ordinance? Anyone from the council?
Yeah, I've brought it up in the past, this is all well and good, but if we can't enforce it, it's not worth a penny. So, we can put this in place, I think it's a good idea, but it has to be enforced, or it's not gonna work. You can put anything you want in writing, but if we don't go out and enforce it, what good is it? So, we need to address
He's
that.
still talking.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, Deb.
On violations and penalties under that section, where it's got unlicensed dog, the different offenses and the RSAs, could there possibly be put some sort of a description as to a menace? Like, what is a menace?
Yeah, so.
I mean, is it?
There's a specific definition under state law. I can pull that up if you'd like.
I just think that if we could just take a short sentence that describes it from that RSA, so that people could have a full understanding, because RSAs sometimes are difficult to read.
Nuisance has a definition as well.
Yeah, the same thing, and then this vigorous offenses. What does that mean?
So a vicious offense is when a dog bites another person or another dog.
Okay.
A nuisance is potentially there isn't violence, but the dog is chasing somebody around or something like that. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what a menace offense is, but there is that definition under state law.
Right. I just think, just for clarification, and in one spot for somebody who looks at it, glances quickly, instead of having to go to the RSA, the actual definition is just there. I'm just trying to make it easier
it's
for
a-
people.
I think it's a great
Because
idea.
anytime you give an excuse and you can say, well, I didn't think that's what it meant, and I didn't go look, and it's just trying to
I think it's
be
a great
clear.
idea. I mean, if we can do one of two things, we can revise it and come back, or if the council wants to act on it tonight, they can just direct me to include that definition right out of the state statute.
And
that
it doesn't have to be the whole definition, just a kind of quick overview, a snapshot, the Cliff Note version of what it means, just for somebody who goes to the site and wants to read it. It's just an easy read.
That makes sense. We can certainly, I would say this, if it's going to be something less than the full definition, just because,
Well, you can cite the, if you, for
Yeah.
a full definition, go to
yeah.
this, what is it, 466 you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
for the
Good
full
idea.
definition, but this is basically what it,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's up to you. That's,
No, I-
that's all I was just thinking is
I think it's a great idea.
clarification as to what we are defining as this. And people are lazy, we all know it, they're not gonna go to the other page and look at it.
We have a comment from Chad.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair. I agree with Councilor Paul regarding the definition. If we can paraphrase the definition and cite exactly where it can be found, I'd be fine with moving forward this evening.
I have another comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I'd be interested to hear, Sherry, you said that you'd worked with the police department, and I guess that's the best formula, right? So a couple people said enforcement, another council said enforcement. I think that it was great to get everybody that would have to carry out this ordinance. I mean, we just sit up here and say, hey, this is great, but you guys are the people who actually have to do it. So I'd be interested to hear how police department would be enforcing this, since they were part of that solution. I don't know if you're prepared to comment on that or not. I don't know if that's okay with you guys, or, I just think it's important for.
I agree, and I mean, I guess the only thing I would add, and then I'll kick it over to the deputy chief, is I think we, in the context of reviewing the town's response to these issues, we've had several meetings between myself, prosecution, the town clerk, the PD, the animal control officer, and I think we are on the same page, understanding that the council has concerns here. The council wants to make sure that the existing ordinance is enforced. If that's the direction you give us, obviously subject to things like, the police, there are sometimes problems of proof or evidentiary issues that the police just can't go forward with a case. But absent something like that, I think if the direction you give us is we want aggressive enforcement here, that's something that certainly they would factor into account pretty heavily.
Mike, thank you for that, but I think what Jim and I actually are adding to this is that we've heard from constituents saying that the comments that the lady was making today have been put out there, and it's really because the officers don't have the teeth this probably would provide. And I'm hoping that we can hear comment that this is actually what's needed to enforce it. And if there's another piece of it that would add the things that you said were missing a few seconds ago, then we should add it to this one. I mean, we want to push this forward so that it's going to be a solution.
Yeah.
That will have the ability to make a change.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, we have existing state law that, again, these are not particularly difficult offenses to prove in court. You don't have to prove intent. If your dog gets out and it does something bad, you're on the hook, period. And so, the state law provides that. This provides, I think, a little bit more teeth because it does tighten up some of these definitions, and it does say, it makes changes around the definition of what at-large is or what control means. And so it does give us a little bit better of an ability to do something where maybe the state statute doesn't.
Mike, we've had a citizen sit here and say that they didn't want to call the dog control officer. That's a problem,
I agree.
and we need to find out why,
I agree.
because that's totally unacceptable. We pay a lot of taxes in this town, we expect those services, and if we don't have this in place, what good is it?
Yeah,
I don't
and
want to have people coming here, taxpayers, and sit there and say they're afraid to call our departments.
No, that's not.
That's
something-
unacceptable to me.
That's not something that we want. I will say this, there are often, like I said, there are often reasons why a criminal or an enforcement case can't be brought forward. It needs to be communicated. It needs to be explained. People should not have that feeling.
Well, can I make a suggestion? and not now because, you know, it's kind of jumping the departments. How about we ask the police department to tell us, you're telling us that there's situations in court, people don't understand that.
Right.
We need a presentation and get these things answered. Maybe it's not as simple as people think, but if they don't know and they're not educated about it, guess what? This is gonna keep on going.
That's why I didn't want to make the assumptions that, you know, just the inclusion of the police department was enough. I wanted to see if there was, what exactly pieces were added that they felt were going to be effective in helping the case.
And I do want to make it clear, you know, there are often, we have an animal control officer. The animal control officer is excellent. He does a great job. But it's not always the animal control officer who responds to calls for service regarding animals. And so I think what we want to see is a coherent, consistent approach to these issues, and to make sure that that communication piece is there.
And so I think that we should have the Londonderry Police Department show up at the next meeting and tell us how it works.
I'm happy to have them do that.
Thank you.
So we have another resident right behind you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Hi, Jan McLaughlin, Crestview Circle. I know that my experience was we called about a large dog around the dumpsters between 14 and 16 Crestview Circle. We called dispatch to find out what to do about it because the dog was kind of, you know, it was a big black lab, and black labs seem kind of friendly, but actually they bite people more than, you know, the pit bulls, as far as records. But and we were told from dispatch, that dog is out a lot and does check all the dumpsters, and, you know, eventually it'll go home. And it's like, well, if I'm afraid to put the trash in the dumpster because there's this big dog that's going back and forth, you know, I don't need to be told to wait till later because, you know, I need to put the trash out now. So that was just my experience. So I can imagine if you had dogs all the time out and you were having problems with repeat dogs and stuff, you know, it depends on how far it goes. I mean, we didn't call 911. We called the non-emergency number because the dog wasn't attacking anybody or whatever. But I did, you know, I felt that we were kind of like, you know, you just handle it yourself, or just let it, you know, let the dog will go back home. It's the same dog that's always out. Okay, well, if it's the same dog that's always out, somebody must know who owns them. So he had a collar, but we didn't go near him to look at it. So,
Thank you.
Good idea.
Could I make a quick comment, please?
Of course, public hearing.
Lee
Just
Jeffers,
need-
16 Crestview Circle.
Thank you, sir.
I'm just curious about the fine structure. So for unlicensed dog, it says $25 for the first offense. Then it jumps to $100 for the second offense if it's committed within 12 months of the first offense. Why did you put the 12 months in there? Why isn't it an automatic $100 fine, whether it happens within 12 months, after 12 months? I'm just curious about how you did all that.
So generally, the fines are structured by a state statute, but
Oh, okay.
I'll let the town manager, if he has further clarification on that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, on the theory that our ordinance can be more or less restrictive than state statute, we do have the option to depart from that statutory scheme at the state level. We haven't done so. You know, it is a violation level offense. Any town ordinance violation is a violation level offense. That means that it's punishable by up to $1,000 fine and no possibility of imprisonment. That's what state statute defines as a violation. So if the council decided we want to get tough on unlicensed dogs and we're going to have a $1,000 offense for the fine for the first offense, you could do that.
I just don't understand why there's that 12 months there. If I'm a dog owner, okay, I'm going to get fined $25 for the first offense. If my dog does the same thing a week later, and if I know it's going to be automatically $100, I just think this thing would have more teeth, so to speak, if you kind of change this fine structure. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Reasonable.
What do you guys want to do? Do you want to change the fine structure?
I think it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Mr.
Makes a
Chairman,
good point.
I would just point out that it's only, by definition, it's only possible to violate the requirement to have your dog licensed annually once a year.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Chief.
So first off, I'm sorry if you've had any bad experience with our police department. I cannot answer or begin to understand the reasons why you two were given the rationale or excuse, whatever you want to call it. I can't answer that. What I can tell you is that if it's important to you, you should call us every time. Regardless what your friends in Hudson tell you to do, call us. Just so everybody knows, our animal control officer is part-time. He works 20 to 24 hours a week, does not work nights, does not work weekends, works 4 to 6 hour blocks. If these type of situations do not happen, or he is not working when they do happen, if it goes to the patrol personnel, we have to prioritize calls often because we have minimum staffing requirements. If we're off at a domestic, they're not going to clear a domestic to go check a dog at a dumpster at that specific moment. But again, I can't explain why someone would say that to you. I can't believe that someone did, first and foremost. So again, I apologize for that.
Kim, can you just address what happens when somebody is unhappy with the service they've gotten from a Londonderry police officer?
Sure. So in our agency, we do a lot of things right. And one of them is employee complaints. If any time any employee in our community feels that they were mistreated, they didn't like how something was handled, you have to call the station. You can either come down or ask to speak to a supervisor. Despite what some people out there may think or say, there is no protection of our employees. They're held to the same standard, if not higher than everybody else. And what happens is we would assign that to a watch commander, and then that lieutenant would look into it. So we assign it a number, and they have to do a little mini investigation into the conduct of that officer. And should the officer have been in the wrong, we deal with them accordingly on that specific complaint. As far as Ms. Paul had mentioned about the menace, for example, one of those things could be a dog running loose, running through someone's garden and digging up all their flowers, or chasing someone's chickens, knocking over someone's trash can, ripping trash all over the place. Those things are a menace. As far as the fine scales, whatever you guys impose, we'd be happy to enforce them. And I think some of the things to remember here is we want to give our residents the benefit of the doubt often. Sometimes accidents happen when dogs escape. Sometimes the kid wasn't paying attention. The kid didn't close the door. Sometimes it is lazy people let the dog out and it takes off. So whatever the case may be, we will look into them. Our animal control officer is phenomenal. And I'm sorry if you don't feel that way. You can call me directly, tell me the dates and times or the specifics, and I'll handle it. And as far as the ordinance, whatever you need us to do to enforce it, we're happy to do that. And the only delay that we had in the last several months was the reworking of this said ordinance. We don't want to enforce something that was in the works. So once it's approved, we're happy to assist and do our job. Dave Carver, our animal control officer, will do whatever is asked of him by myself or any other supervisor within the agency. Hope that answers all that stuff. So anything else on the dog ordinance or fines?
I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you, Kim.
it sounds like I need an amendment for the menace piece.
Should we do anything with the fines, Mr. Chairman? Do you want me to take a stab at incorporating some of the feedback that I've heard here tonight and come back with a draft that actually reflects all of this?
I'm a little, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'm just a little concerned with the last comment that I think they need this sooner rather than later.
I say our next meeting's in a month. That's
Yeah.
my only.
So
I'd like to,
Right, so,
Making
so,
a motion?
so let me, wait a minute, let me, procedurally, I can approve this,
Yes.
and then I can amend it at the next meeting with another public hearing.
So I don't believe you can, because you are revising, we have an ordinance that talks about how to amend ordinances, and it requires 2 hearings, a first reading and a public hearing with newspaper publication before the public hearing.
Okay, never mind.
We can amend it.
Okay. Let's amend it and let's put it in effect. All right, so I need an amendment, I need a motion on the amendment Mike is gonna give me with regards to a definition of menace.
Move, Mr. Chairman?
Well, Mike is gonna give it to me and
I
then
know,
I'll accept the
we can
motion.
amend it for, oh, you wanted to read it into the
I'm
record?
gonna take it first.
Okay,
We'll vote it, we'll put one amendment in, then we'll deal with the fines.
okay, get you.
Mr. Chairman, so. this will
Sorry
be-
about that, Mike.
Not at all. So this will be in section 12. We're going to amend that section to include the statutory definitions of nuisance, menace, and vicious.
Correct.
All right, I'll accept that motion, please. I need someone to, So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's Amendment 1. All right, with regards to violation for the penalties, what you all like to do?
Well, let me just get clarification on that, because I think the one that was read was about a yearly, is that what you're saying? A
That's
yearly-
you got it, exactly right.
So there's no reason to do anything in between that, because once you're violated, you're violated, you have to get the person licensed. I think that's the reason why the 12 months is there.
Right.
Which sounds reasonable, but I think what the gentleman is suggesting with his comment is that if you go back and you fine them once and they pay the $100 and they still don't get them licensed, what do you do then?
Right.
And we can,
Maybe just delete the 1 year.
I mean, I'm fine with leaving it the way it is. It's either that
I
or
think it's just
go.
the second offense.
I mean, I can tell you that we primarily deal with unlicensed dogs under the state statute exclusively. It's rare that we're doing that under the town ordinance.
So,
So then
silly
let's leave
question.
that part alone.
I know, I'm just thinking, it's a silly question, though. I mean, would somebody actually come in and pay a fine of $25 and not register their dog?
Give you an
I
idea.
know, I'm a silly question. That's what's happening.
Well, it's $7.50 to register.
I mean,
your
they're
dog.
already there, it's like,
Right.
okay.
Right.
You know, so I will get a $100 fine, you know, it's like.
You know, I will let the town clerk address that, but they do get all sorts of unreasonable types.
I'm gonna drive up there, I'm gonna take the $25, I'm gonna pay it and not register my dog. Okay.
And if you're a
Generally-
senior, it's $3.
Generally, when people come in with a fine, they are there to pay it, and then if we tell them that your dog needs to be registered, they're very grateful to register their dog at the same time. We haven't had that one yet, Joe, but it wouldn't, you never know down the road. But generally, they just want to come in and
let
get
me
it done.
would it be silly to ask me for an amendment? I don't wanna drag this out, to say the $25 fine and your dog must be registered at the time of paying the fine? I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, I don't know. Because now they're gonna come anyway, I'm just trying to be logical
Right.
about this flow of information, you know,
Yeah,
they're
I
gonna be
mean,
there
actually,
anyway.
I think my recommendation would be that we just strike the unlicensed dog provision next to nuisance, and we just address with unlicensed dogs. We address unlicensed dogs at the state statute level.
So just take out nuisance RSA 466.31A through D.
We're gonna leave. So my suggestion is that we leave nuisance 46131A through D, and we strike unlicensed dog RSA 466:1. Again, because with regard to the licensure requirement, believe it or not, you know, the state statute affords the ability to impound the dog. So if we really were in a position where we needed to get aggressive with an enforcement issue, we have that there. I'm not suggesting that that's something that we want to do, but we've got all the bullets we need, I think, under state law to deal with the licensure issue.
Okay, so under section 11, I'll accept a motion to strike unlicensed dog RSA, I struck it already, 466, what is the number?
Colon one.
Colon 1, I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. What else do you want to do with fines? Menace, second offense, $200. Do you want to make that something different? Do you want to leave it the same?
I think it's good.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Vicious and offensive, I have 100, 400, 800, and 1,000.
Leave the same.
Leave them the same? Okay, with that, I have 2 amendments approved. I'll accept the motion to approve ordinance 2022 as amended, 22.0-06 as amended.
Yeah, make that motion as amended.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The vote's affirmative.
And
Passes.
just one final
Thank you, Mr.
statement on it, if it's okay too. With Elise being here, and we had Pam Dolan before, numerous calls to the police department. The idea of agreeing and following through on the enforcement, it really is the key, because too many residents have said, you know, walk a different way, go a different path, or they don't want to report it, not anything to do with our police department, but they don't want to cause difficult feelings with their neighbors. So we really, Jim, Councilor Butler, you hit it on the head. We really need to, you know, make sure that this is enforced and that our residents, when they do call, that, you know, this is the consequence of it. And I know the problem that we have in my office and with, you know, incredible with Dave Carver, is that often when you go into these situations, you've got one neighbor saying this and one neighbor saying this, but the ultimate goal has to be is if the dog did this, this is the consequence, and then this is the follow-through on it.
Chairman? I think with that, also, one of the things to close the loop, and that Jim was talking about earlier, let's put it on this board to take a peek at it. Maybe 3 months, we check back.
Absolutely.
Say, how did this go? Where were the police reports that came out for it, and how were they resolved?
Right.
And people like yourself can
Hear
check
from the
back and
public.
see if those were, actually done the way they
Thank
needed to be
you.
done.
Right.
So,
I think it's an excellent idea.
Yep.
Because we just can't look at it that dogs are dogs and, they're going to be dogs and they're going to jump on people. The answer is no, they can't do that. And as the owners, we're responsible for that. We have 26, almost 27,000 people, so we have to make sure that everyone feels comfortable.
Yeah, I would like to make a suggestion, when we do have a call in the dog office, or whoever goes out there, that maybe there's a pamphlet that explains to these people that you're talking to, this is the violation and this what can happen.
And the
so you can
consequences, right.
educate them on
That's great, yeah,
consequences.
Good idea.
Yeah,
Because I'm tired of hearing about it.
yeah, it's been long-standing, yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you, that's great. Appreciate it. And just one last thing from the town clerk's office. You did have before you the civil forfeitures. It's something every year that I need to bring to your attention. This year, we have only 300 residents that have not registered their dogs. 3 years ago, it was about 900. That got cut in half. Last year, we had about 600. So we've really been working hard in our office to try to account for every dog, get the word out there. All the social media, our newspapers have really helped us with that. To the residents out there, if your dog has passed, if you've moved, if you've transferred ownership to someone else, please let us know that, because civil forfeitures will be mailed out by the end of next week is our goal. We are a little short-staffed right now, but once you get that letter, it's not a pleasant letter. It does talk about the $25 per dog and also $1 a month charge on late fines. So avoid that. Let us know this week if there's a problem and you no longer have that dog. So thank you so much. Thanks for everyone's help on this, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're still in public hearing. I'm moving to Lithia Springs conservation transaction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I am here tonight with representatives of the Conservation Commission to present to the town council and request council approval for a transaction by which the town would acquire 54 acres of land along Nashua Road towards the Hudson Line. This is property that was previously home to the historic Lithia Springs Water Company. That, of course, is long gone, but there are good reasons to be interested in preserving this property against development. It is developable to a certain extent, and it, as you will hear tonight, contains prime wetland and habitat that would be a shame to see it lost. I would just preface my my brief remarks by saying, there's been a lot of talk tonight about swapping conservation parcels or lifting conservation restrictions. That is a one-of-a-kind thing that was written into the Gilchrist transaction at the outset. There's nothing like that at play here. When the town acquires property in conservation, it stays in conservation, and that there is no other proposal under consideration here tonight. The purchase price is $1.5 million, and there are a number of different contingencies that are contained in the purchase and sales agreement. Among those contingencies are approval by the Conservation Commission. That has already occurred. Approval by the Londonderry Town Council. That's why we're here tonight. And appraisal of the property for no less than the purchase price. So the town's appraiser is going to go out there and ensure that the value is there to support the purchase price and the transaction. With that, I'll hand it off to Mike Speltz, who can talk more about the specific characteristics of this property.
Please proceed, Mike.
Who's on the slides? Are you?
Oh, Lisa.
I can do it.
Oh,
Yep, just tell
thank
me
you.
when. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. Next slide.
Okay.
So this is just going to be a series of a few maps and a few photographs to give you a flavor for what's on the property. So on these maps, the property is outlined in yellow in the center of the map, but there's some context around it. So the Fish and Game Department publishes a map that shows where the best habitat is in the state and in the region and the supporting landscape around it. So the good stuff is that purplish pink hue, and you can see that there's quite a bit of it on the property, and maybe even more importantly, the
property to the south and west is actually the power line. If you've ever driven down 102, just before you get to the flea market there, there's a power line that goes over the road. It's about a 600-foot wide line, so it's several lines. But that land, which is never going to be developed because it's either owned or controlled by the power companies, is prime habitat, as you can see on this slide. So we're really leveraging that little bit that's on the project area and taking advantage of an even greater area of prime habitat. Next slide, please. Another thing that the Fish and Game Department does is publish a map of what they call connectivity. So how can creatures get, and we kind of heard some of the speakers earlier tonight, get from one habitat area to another. And the brown area that you see is one of those conservation habitat connectivity pathways. So if we zoomed out, we would see that pathway goes all the way up into the Musquash. So we have literally between Musquash and the associated properties and Litchfield State Forest, there's 3,000 acres up there of protected land. And this path gives the critters a chance to move along that path to get to other habitat niches within the town. Next slide, please. The large purple circles on this map are wellhead protection areas. So it would be nice if they actually went into the project area. They don't, but it's not a black and white line. So we define a area around a well where we're trying to not let there be any contaminants get on the surface of the land and then, percolate down into the groundwater and ultimately into the well water, up the well and into people. So those two wells on either eastern side, east and west, are very close to the property, and I have no doubt that protecting this property is going to contribute to the protection of the water in those wells. And there's another one you can see off in the very lower left or southwest corner of the map, about the same size. The lighter pink on this map is aquifers. So this is a relatively low transmissivity aquifer. In other words, water runs through it rather slowly, but it does. And so, again, especially in a town like ours where we don't have a lot of aquifers, protecting a one here is another plus for this project. And again, you can see that one on the northwest corner of the property extends into the power line, and we know that power line land is going to be safe. It's not going to be developed. Let's see. And then the blue on the map is just the wetlands that are on the map. And those wetlands are valuable habitat for a lot of different creatures, and I'll show you some pictures in just a second. The other thing to notice is the property is not entirely wetland by any means, which makes it desirable for development, which is something we don't want to see happen. So this is Nesson-Cake Brook. It runs all the way from up the east side of the property, across the north side, and then down to the northwest corner. And it's just a beautiful piece of land. There are a lot of wildlife in there, to include, if you look very carefully, I want to give you the context here, and then I'll do a close-up. But you can see at least one nest that's almost at the top of the slide, about a third of the way from the left. And it looks like just a little bunch of sticks on the top of a tree without any limbs or leaves on it. But that is, in fact, an osprey nest. Next slide. And there's a close-up of it, but I wanted to show you where it occurs within Nesson-Cake Brook. And Nessun Brook is fortunately one of the most protected brooks in town. It has conservation land upstream of it and downstream of it, and goes through Litchfield into the Merrimack River. And for that reason, we have actually a letter of support from the Pennachuck Water Company saying, yes, we favor this project, please go ahead with it, because the Nessun Brook dumps into the Merrimack not very far north, upstream of where the intake is for the Pennachuck Water Works. And if you look at this picture, the center nest there is the osprey nest, and to the left and right on either side, you can see a couple of heron nests, so they're in there too. And there's just some close-ups of the birds on their nests. And then I'll turn it back over to Mike to just talk about the numbers.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing that I left out of my initial remarks is this, and it's captured here on this slide. This is the Conservation Commission right now has $780,000 in its land acquisition fund. I expect by early September that another $200,000 or so will be added to that fund. Obviously, that's not enough to close on a transaction entailing $1.5 million purchase price. And so what are we going to do to close the gap? Well, the Conservation Commission, led by Mike Speltz's efforts as chief grant writer, is pursuing various grants here. And I think initial indications are that there's a lot of interest in supporting this project. But it is important to note that there is a contingency in this agreement that if you approve this and the town can't scrape together the money, that we are able to back out. That would be unfortunate, but we are not bound to this agreement if, unfortunately, we're not able to generate the funding. The other thing I would just add, Mr. Chairman, is I try to make sure that residents who I talk to who can't make it here tonight still have the ability to participate. I did speak with a resident who thinks that the town's interest in this parcel is recent and that it has something to do with the Gilchrist parcel. That's not correct. The Conservation Commission has been interested in this parcel for many years, and the only potential connection to the Gilchrist transaction is this. The Gilchrist transaction does require the town to identify and secure alternative conservation property of at least the same conservation value. This parcel definitely fits the bill, but as I said earlier, the Gilchrist transaction is a big question mark right now, and the Conservation Commission wants to do this deal with or without Gilchrist.
Okay. Yes.
Quick question, what was the size again?
It is 54 acres, I believe.
54.
That's correct.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I left out something that it's out of my wheelhouse, but Lithia Springs is also a piece of Londonderry history. The land was a source of spring water that was shipped all over the United States, and some say all over the world. The Morrison House Museum has jugs with Lithia Spring Water Company on it, and different advertising gizmos that they gave away. So this was an important part of Londonderry for about 40, 50 years, between about 1880 and 1940.
Thank you. Anyone else from the council? Anyone else from the public? All right, so here's my question.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
John Wilson from.
Sure, Mr. Wilson. Can you come on up so you can speak in one of the microphones? Wherever it's convenient for you, sir. If you'd like to sit next to Mr. Speltz, too, whatever's convenient for you.
John Wilson, I live in Tranquil Drive. I'm not against this purchase, but I have a question. And it's the same question I asked about 4 or 5 years ago when we purchased the property south of 102 along Monmouth Road. There was some land off to the west, 10 or 12 acres, I think it was mainly wetland that we purchased. And at the time, I said, excuse me, it's wetlands, which are already protected to some degree by the state. Okay? And I was wondering when we spend money to buy wetlands, it's not exactly a great investment because it's not land that's going to be developed. It's the state will protect it. But the real issue that I have had at the same time is the Conservation Commission, to my knowledge, is not really putting a program in to capture green and open space for the town. Now, those kinds of opportunities are not 54 acres. They may be half acres or acres at a time. But we should start spending money trying to capture some land that's not developed in town so we have some more green space that's going to disappear. And that's the comment I made then. And I don't think we've purchased any land that you would describe as being green space, open space land.
I would say that I would disagree with that. The Max Apples parcel is open space that we just purchased a couple years ago.
Yep, but that's a continuation of land we have. I'm talking about small pieces. For example,
You're talking about individual buildable lots.
what?
You're talking about individual buildable lots.
Or even maybe not. Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
But, yeah, but for example, the rail trail now runs parallel to 28 Rockingham Road or whatever. Okay, and that area is not attractive. Okay, but there's if there's opportunities to buy land there that would connect over to the rail trail, for example, just a passageway to get in there. In the same way with from 93 all the way down to Derry, if we could buy some land, small piece of land that would connect to that rail trail, because the rail trail through that section there is several miles, doesn't lend itself to short-term walks or people being able to use it. And there's probably lots of land around town where we could build pocket parks and so on that are just open space.
Okay.
And that land is disappearing quickly. And I think that's part of the Conservation Commission's charter, really, to look for property like that.
Okay, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you.
I agree.
Yes.
Jan McLaughlin, Crestview Circle. I was part of the Conservation Commission way back when we first came to town, and we did a wetland survey during that point of time and went and investigated the Lithia Springs site back then. And I remember there was interest in preserving the site, and we looked for the foundations and things which you can still find. I don't know if you can still find it now, but 30 years ago you could. And this is a site we should be protecting. Hopefully we can, do some trails stuff or whatever so people can learn about the Londonderry history involved with the site. But this is something we should be protecting. And this is a significant portion of land. So I encourage the town to vote for it.
Thank you. Yes.
Mike, based on the maps, okay, I can see a couple of things, the wetlands, but also preserving water, which is brought up over and over again. There's dry buildable land in there. Has anyone done any analysis on what could possibly go in on that dry land?
Well, the Realtor did provide us with a conceptual development plan for the property. It was basically 96 apartment units spread over 6 two-story apartment buildings. I don't think that would pass the planning board because that area is not zoned for residential development. But it does demonstrate there's certainly the upland there to put in, 6 commercial buildings or a larger structure, the equivalent of, that square footage. So, yeah, it's developable, and they already have a Department of Transportation curb cut, so they have the right to enter the property.
Good question,
My
John.
understanding is 13 acres is buildable. It's my understanding.
I think it's got it more than that.
All right, so then can we run a GIS calculation on this and find out what is buildable and what isn't?
Certainly.
That would help me make a decision
For both
because,
commercial and
I mean, at the end of the
res.
day, it's $1.5 million, and I would like a little bit more information. I'm not against doing it, but I'd like more information. If we could run it through GIS, give us an idea of what could be built from what it's zoned for.
Yep.
What could be built, is it possible even to build 96 apartments?
With a variance.
And if it was rezoned as AR1, what could be built?
I do remember that curb cut you were talking about. I think it was a church that was gonna be, build a big comp. Am I wrong about that?
That was further up one.
Further up? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Quick question, please.
Sure.
Lee Jeffers, 16 Crestview Circle. Real quick, I'm looking at the purchase and sales agreement. It looks like we have until December 31st of this year to close on this. Is that true, Mike?
Yes, just bear with me a
Okay.
second.
That's actually the question I was gonna ask, because do we have a time limit on doing this?
So the
August
closing,
I think August 31st is our first stage gate we have to go through.
that's correct. So August 31st is the deadline by which the town council either approves or doesn't approve this. December 31st is the closing date, but the reason I had to look is that I was able to negotiate language that's fairly favorable to the town, that entitles the town to reasonable extensions of time that will not be unreasonably withheld. And so that gives us some flexibility here to request additional extensions if they are reasonable.
Okay, you answered my second question. Thank you.
So we have a meeting scheduled for the 15th, a tentative meeting scheduled for the 29th, so we've got 2 meetings before the end of August. I would just, we've done this on other parcels that we've gone to look at and we've run it through GIS, just so that we can get a little bit better feel for, what's possible. And that way we can rationalize the vote for $1.5 million.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can address Mr. Speltz briefly?
Sure, of course.
There's no grant deadlines, Mike, or anything like that that we're gonna miss here by kicking this out to August?
The LCHIP grant application has already been submitted, so we're good on that. The Aquatic Resource Mitigation Fund application is due on 31 August. So, quick turnaround, I'll have everything ready to go.
Go ahead.
I'm just confused. I mean, I'm fine with going what we just put, but what will that, I think you made a great presentation that this is something that's gonna take care of the aquifers, very valuable land for wildlife. I mean, by doing this study and extending the time, what is that gonna gain us? I mean, I know, I don't like to rush into anything, because usually we get it wrong when we do that. We say that a lot. But what is this other information gonna give us that's gonna be, we're gonna say, oh my God, yeah, they can build 66 apartments, so we don't want it. No, we're gonna say, of course we want it. So if we want it today, what's gonna change that we're gonna want it tomorrow? I just wanna make sure that we can have this extra time, and it's not gonna hurt any of these things, because
Exactly.
I don't think we're looking for, hopefully we're not looking for 1.5, hopefully we're looking for the 500,000 when the grants come in, with those due diligence that we're gonna be doing.
Correct, and to your point, Mr. Vice Chairman, one additional piece of information that we will have, if this is kicked out until August, is the appraisal. And I think how buildable this is will be factored into the appraisal.
Exactly, okay.
If it turns out that it's just, the appraiser goes out there and determines that there really is no buildable value, well, maybe that's factored into the
Okay.
valuation that we get back.
That's a good reason.
I just think we need to do due diligence, because
Yeah,
there's
okay.
citizens that have spoke up and concerned about spending that kind of money, and if there is land that can be buildable on it, we should know, and we should educate ourselves on what can be built, the
And-
pro and the con. So
And I agree that we don't lose anything by doing that additional work.
That's what I wanted to make sure we weren't gonna lose anything. That's good.
I get it, Joe.
Yep.
Motion to continue.
So move.
Second.
Any other questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We'll continue this till August 15th at 7 PM. Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved,
Thank you, Mike.
Chairman.
Second.
Thanks, Mike.
All those in favor, signify by
Mike.
saying aye.
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 Thanks,
Chair
Mike.
votes in the affirmative. Can we take 5? And can I see the deputy chief and the town manager outside? So I was just getting the updates. And so it took Manchester Waterworks 45 minutes to come to pumps.
To increase
And
the
that's where we
pressure.
have towers. So it's reliable equipment, not coke.
Yeah.
So it's the building on the corner.
The other side?
Yeah. All right, let me just get some water and we'll get started again.
This water thing could have been fixed a long time ago.
So, listen, we know it's a problem and we're beating the crap out of them, right?
Huh?
When they repaired the lines on Mammoth Road, people said, put in the bigger, and they didn't.
No, but we also, we're gonna have to deal with tanks. You know,
I'm just saying that it,
We're going to have to deal with having to put in water towers here at some point.
and I encourage both of you to go look up, Hampstead water systems and what's happening in Hampstead. About everybody going dry because of that.
Hampstead?
Hampstead Water. It's a.
Thank you, folks. Follow up on strategic goals discussion. You know what? I'm gonna, can we just hold that for 1 second? Mr. Jeffers?
Yeah, let's, yeah.
Mr. Jeffers? Listen, you've been very patient in waiting.
Sure.
Why don't you come on up and let's get you so you can go home?
Right here, or do I? sit
Anywhere
there?
you like.
All right.
You know, you've been very patient and I don't
No,
wanna make you wait any
this has
longer.
been very informative tonight. I'm really happy to be here, to be honest with you. I was just telling somebody in the audience I should be here every month because I found this very, very informative.
Please do.
Yeah,
We
definitely.
welcome you.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate that, thank you. So, sir, you are looking to be appointed to,
The Heritage
The
Commission.
Heritage Commission.
Yes.
so we have your background. Traditionally, what we do is we have someone, if they would like to give an opening statement, tell us a little bit about themselves.
Okay.
Then we may ask you some questions.
Okay.
And then we sort of proceed from there. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works fine. Yeah.
Fantastic. So the floor is yours.
All right, well, I won't give you my whole life story. I'll just start by saying I've been a property owner here in Londonderry for a combined total of 14 years, living at the Vista Ridge condominiums, as you probably heard earlier tonight. I was on the board of directors there for 10 years, very much involved in my community. I love the town of Londonderry, more so because, I'll be honest with you, I moved away for 2 years. I thought I wanted to live out in Rindge. And I decided once, and Rindge is a beautiful area, but I really missed this area. So 2 years ago, I moved back and I actually bought back into Vista Ridge. So,
Fantastic.
so I've decided that Londonderry is where I need to be and where I want to stay. And I saw in the Londonderry Times that you guys were doing the Londonderry Leadership Program again. So I signed up for it, and it was the best decision I made. I got to meet a lot of you folks. I got to learn a lot about town government that I didn't really know a lot about. I was very ignorant, actually. So the program is very beneficial, and it's actually given me the courage to put my hat in the ring. And I think I could bring a lot of ideas and input with the Heritage Commission, and it's a great way to just get my feet wet and start getting involved in town government. So
Fantastic.
that's my story.
I got Jim first.
Question. What triggered the Heritage Commission? What, what triggered it? What?
Well,
You have a bunch of
I
boards.
love
What ones-
stone walls. I love the character. I want to help preserve the character of Londonderry, yesteryear's Londonderry. So if I can have a small say or in that would mean a lot to me.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So is that the character or the characters?
maybe a bit of both. I don't know.
A little bit of both?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, John.
So looking over your application,
Yeah.
I saw that you have a bachelor's in business, and then
Yes.
also you're an account sales manager.
Yes.
So don't take this the wrong way. Just
No.
wanted to see what skills you felt in your life that you've already lived would bring to the Heritage Commission. And sometimes people do property values.
Yeah.
Or other types of things.
Yeah.
But what experiences do you think you're going to be bringing
Well,
to the Heritage Commission?
I think my number one skill set, and my employer would tell you this, is my communication skills, my listening skills.
Yep.
I'm able to get along with a lot of different people. I try to take into consideration everyone's point of view. I'm a team player, and I think that counts for a lot.
Okay.
So
No,
I,
I like
think that's the main thing that I bring to the table.
The censuses you talked about earlier about how the brick walls and how you're fascinated with how that all happened.
Yeah.
In Londonderry and how we brought that forward. I was hesitant to even ask the question after I heard that, so I like that
Yeah.
statement. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for stepping up.
John's
Thank
gonna
you.
sign it, and Joe.
Anybody else?
Anyone else?
Thank you for stepping up. It's we need people, new people, to step up. And yeah, you might be a team player, and that's great. But individual opinions and different perspectives are very, very welcomed. And I think that's what's important about new people is the different perspective and the new set of eyes looking at
New ideas,
Yes. Yes. So
And you
Lot.
guys have proven, like tonight, how many times have I come up here to make commentaries? And you've actually taken the time to really listen. And we're the town of Londonderry is very fortunate to have all of you on this board. So
thank you.
Thank you for all your help and your devotion to this town. And I just want to be a small part of that right now. So
Don't worry, we'll get you doing more.
You don't know. The hook's on. You just don't know it yet.
Thanks for stepping up. Ha ha. Any other questions?
I do want to say thank you very much for taking the time. I think Leadership Londonderry is definitely an amazing program.
It
I don't
is.
think there's quite a few people in this room that have been through the program, and you're a prime example, as with myself, and I'm sure other members of the council have been through it. But I do appreciate it. What I really appreciate your background as well, and I think just your willingness to support and continue coming to the council meetings is very important and would be, again, appreciated. So
no, this has been great. It's been very informative tonight. And I'm like, why don't I come to these every month?
Twice a month.
The doors are open.
We're only on summer schedule right now. So, all right, so are we looking at a full-time or an alternate position here? Do we know?
Good question.
yeah.
No?
I'm not sure.
I'm hoping full-time, but I'll let you guys decide.
So full-time and alternate, you attend all the meetings?
Yeah,
When you're full-time, you vote all the time?
Okay.
Alternate, you vote when someone else is absent?
right.
You know, I started as an alternate member on the planning board in 1999. Don't tell anybody.
Oh, God.
Mr.
But,
Chairman,
yeah.
I'm just seeking clarification on that question
Okay.
as we speak.
So, Mr. Jeffers, I don't have any questions for you. We did have an old home day meeting right before this, so if you're looking for something to do around the 22nd of August, see Katie Sullivan, and you'll meet everybody in
That's a
town.
possibility, yeah. I would be open to
We
that.
always can use more hands and more help.
I'm sure, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So why don't I accept the motion to appoint Mr. Jeffers to either a full-time or an alternate position, depending on which one is available.
Very good.
How about if I ask someone to approve that motion?
How's that? I'll
Second.
Yep.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in the affirmative. Mr. Jeffers, see the town clerk, and she'll have the proper paperwork for you. And welcome to the Heritage Commission.
Thank you very much.
Please.
You're welcome.
Get to know you on a first-name basis.
Okay, now let's do strategic goals.
Okay, here we go.
You want to do a follow-up discussion on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just put this on the,
So I'm Mr. Town Manager. I'm gonna guess based on recent events, you probably want to, talk in more detail maybe about this at another time.
Yes,
because
that's
some
very
things
good.
have changed a lot recently.
Yes.
Would that be a good
That would
idea?
be very much appreciated. Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
I just figured I'd help you out with that.
That's perfect.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll put that off until August 15th.
That'd be a good idea.
Let's talk about town acquisition of the Bodwell Waste Services.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you'll bear with me a moment, this is something that arose, and by the way, Mr. Jeffers is to be a full-time member, as that's the, so congratulations to him. And if you'll just bear with me while I get my notes. So we have in town, Mr. Chairman, a number of, and I don't think a lot of people know this, a number of private sanitary sewer systems. And one of those systems is in the north part of town. It's owned by Bodwell Waste. And Bodwell is in the process of liquidating. And what happens when an entity that's regulated by the PUC liquidates is the PUC is going to want to know what's next and what about the customers. So the town has been approached, and the effort here is really being led by the Manchester wastewater treatment system. Bodwell has users in Londonderry, but the waste goes to the Manchester plant. And for a number of reasons, Manchester is interested in making sure that that waste gets there in a safe, efficient manner.
Very happy about that.
There are environmental concerns up in that part of town, and this is a priority for Manchester. So Londonderry was approached, and basically our position was, sure, we're willing to help out on a couple of different conditions. One is that the 3 sewer pump stations that are currently located in Londonderry be decommissioned and that the system operate by gravity. The reason for that is sewer pump stations are notoriously require a lot of maintenance and are prone to breaking down. And so for us to take over the system, our request or demand was that those needed to be eliminated and the system needed to be flow by gravity. That's occurred. The other issues that the town has taken a stand on are as follows. One, this can't cost Londonderry a dime, and that condition has been achieved. And two, there was initially a request that Bodwell would be able to, they have a lot of capital expenses that are still being paid for by debt service. Correct. And so Bodwell was looking for the ability to be able to continue to recover those capital investments by way of a billing that would last into the future. And as you know, Londonderry sewer customers get a bill from the town of Londonderry. We foresaw a disaster and insisted that there should be no double billing. The financial arrangement needs to be worked out between the parties, but that is not something that we were going to sign up for. Lastly, I would point out that the town insisted that we're not going to just take over a sewer system sight unseen. We want that sewer system inspected, and we want to know what we're acquiring. That condition has been satisfied, and the engineering department is satisfied that the system is in the kind of shape that we would even want to consider taking it over. I would emphasize that once these Bodwell customers become Londonderry customers, as you know, the town's sewer function is entirely self-funded. It's funded through user fees, and so there would be no effect on the town's budget. And so, why am I here to get consensus tonight for the town to enter into this kind of agreement? One, because this arrangement will pay for itself. It is good for the environment, and it addresses water quality issues up in that part of town that affect Londonderry. And lastly, customer satisfaction and rates. While I can't make any promises, we anticipate that the town is a little bit more competitive in its ability to offer rates, and also a little bit more responsive and able to offer better customer service than Bodwell has been. So there's nothing formal here. But given the size and scope of this and the fact that I didn't want the council to be surprised, I'm here to get consensus to move forward with this transaction.
Any questions?
Questions? Yeah. I don't feel comfortable at this point. We can say gravity fed all we want. Our engineers have looked at it. Have we had an independent engineer that specializes in that look at it?
Yes.
And don't get, okay.
Yes.
And who was it and what were their recommendations?
I don't have the name of that group with me, but I can certainly supply that for you.
The other thing too is, you know, they say, how old is the system?
I don't have that
We
information.
don't have that. Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see the consulting engineer and our engineer come in here, because I don't want to see us get caught. It could be a great idea, but I don't want to see us get caught repairing pipes and having a gravity flow system after the fact.
What part of
'Cause that
town
can-
is this servicing?
The Mill Pond area. It's up at the,
Is that off of Litchfield Road?
I don't think so. I think
No.
it's up towards
Towards Auburn.
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 Yeah.
Oh, it's on that side
Yeah.
of town.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting.
I'm not against it.
Yeah.
But I need more information.
I understand.
Because I don't want it to become a big
Is
liability.
there a deadline on this?
Yesterday.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I can tell you that, so that is part of the history here. You know, Londonderry has been working cooperatively with Manchester, and we're completely on the same page as Manchester. Bodwell kicked off a PUC proceeding that, you know, set off these deadlines that frankly are not Londonderry's deadlines. And so I begrudge you none of your questions, Councilor Butler. I think that they're legitimate questions that we can get you answers for. As I said, I'm looking for consensus, and so this isn't something that I think necessarily requires another meeting. But I think that if there is a deadline, we could either call a special meeting or try to address this in some other form or fashion.
Can you give me a street?
I can have Bob, if Bob Carey's still here. Unfortunately, the reason Bob Carey couldn't be here is because he's at solid waste tonight. I can run upstairs and see if Bob can come down and address those.
Mantor Mill.
Mansour Mill.
That's where it's, another question with this is, we have sewer lines that are owned by Manchester Sewer in town?
No.
We don't.
My
Who owns the sewer lines?
So my understanding is Bodwell owns, so with respect to these particular lines,
I'm talking about, do we have any Manchester sewer lines in town?
I can't answer, I don't know the answer to that question.
Because
sitting
if
here
this
tonight.
was such a good deal, why wouldn't Manchester?
All right,
Be
so
looking to
Mantor Mill
approach it.
was built in 2014.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this thing's less than 10 years old.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. Mr. Carey and Mr. Trotter are not risk-taking people.
No?
And so the fact that
That'd be the understatement.
Yeah,
so the fact that the fact that they're telling me, oh no problem. That in my mind does count for something.
It does.
But again, I don't think they're illegitimate
So we
questions.
can give you a tentative consensus. We can ask for a tentative consensus based on understanding a couple of questions. You know,
Sure.
one, how old it is.
Yeah.
Two is we want a little bit more confirmation. Am I right? Is it only 2014?
Yeah, my understanding is it's not ancient. Yeah.
Bless you.
Thank you. I
Do
mean, if
we
it's
know
less
if
than 10 years old, okay. I mean, but we can give you a tentative consensus based on that information. Does that
And there's a
help?
report as well, which I can supply to the council
I'd like
that
to-
talks
Oh,
about the
that's
condition
good.
of the.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So,
Do we know if there's any history of maintenance on this line? Have they had any
Issues,
problems
right,
on this
yeah.
line? I mean, it may be 10 years old, but it could have been
Yeah.
a low bid and
Yeah.
God only knows
My,
if the
my
pipe's the
understanding is
right gauge.
there were issues around the pump station, and that's why we
got rid of the pump station.
got rid of the
Yeah.
pump station.
Okay. All right.
All right, as long as it's not anything wild, I mean, is everybody okay with it?
So this is not binding to us at this moment
No,
in
we're
time.
basically, we're giving a tentative, like,
It's okay to go look down the
Well,
rabbit
keep
hole.
on
We're not
looking.
sure we're going to jump down it.
But you know what? If a snake comes out of the rabbit hole, we're out.
Yeah. Okay. I'm okay with that. Okay.
Sounds good.
I'm
Okay.
okay with it.
It's fine with me.
Good with that?
Yep.
And if we need to have some sort of
Call or something,
Special meeting.
call, or special
Yeah.
meeting, we'll do that.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. What's this next thing? Meeting location and recording practices for town boards.
I put this on here, Mr. Chairman, because the questions have arisen, and they tend to come to me about, hey, why isn't the such and such meeting on TV? Or, why, are certain groups meeting in certain rooms around town hall that might not have that television capability? I'm not aware of this question arising in the past and rising to the level of where we had to answer the question, how do we situate boards and committees, town boards and committees, and what requirements do we have for them? I think that, that obviously town hall is a municipal facility. I think that, my staff and I, if would have the ability to say that room A is available and room B is not available. But I want, to the extent we're talking about doing something like that, I want to be implementing the policy choices that the council expresses. And so what I'm looking for from the council is, how would you like me to address these issues when they arise, understanding that there are, it's been expressed to me, members of boards and committees who aren't wild about being on TV.
State statute covers this, doesn't it?
Yes, there is no statutory requirement under 91A or otherwise requiring meetings to be televised.
So this has gone, I mean, at least for the 3 or 4 terms that I've been around, this has gone up and down like a roller coaster. And it really had been a couple of the times in the room across the street, just because people wanted to attend and get kind of the flavor of what was going on, but couldn't for whatever reason, medical conditions or just not there. Those folks wanted to be able to get it on Access TV. And so I think that's kind of where it came in. I know that some of the committees that I was on sometimes got videotaped there, sometimes they didn't. Kind of the recorder was just programmed to come on automatically, and then for some reason it stopped about 2 or 3 years ago. So, and whoever was worrying about that kind of was not in that group anymore, so it kind of didn't get recorded anymore because of the fact that it's not a state statute. So that's at least the history that I know, especially about the room across the street, across the hallway.
And the other thing I will add is that what's changed since that time is that my understanding is still able to record in there. We've done it in the last, 6 months. This room, Moose Hill, can now be recorded without a cable operator, and that is through Drew Caron's efforts. I think that's great. It gives us, the ability to do a lot more. The capability is there. I mean, you will have, like tonight, we have a solid waste upstairs. We have town council down here. This room is open.
And recreation.
Recreation was in there.
And both of us are
Recreation was in there,
liaisons,
too.
and you can't go to
So
the
you do sometimes have that issue, a lack of available rooms with video recording capability. But for the most part, I think if we wanted to have everything on TV, we could.
And I'll just be transparent and just, I think you just brought up a great point. We literally have a recreation commission meeting the same time they have a town council meeting.
Right.
So what I used to do is get the minutes,
Yep.
read them, and see the video. And frankly, they don't always line up. I mean, the best minute person will not capture the flavor of what the discussion is. So watching the videos were very, very helpful to be able to bring back any information. So again, that's into the discussion. Just wanted to throw that piece into it. I didn't know
And the
if you-
same piece is solid waste. So I can't go to solid waste. I can't watch it. I've read the minutes, and it's barren, really. It's very little bit is said. No details, no
You don't
meat.
get the flavor of the
There's no meat on the bones when you're really looking at it, and so it's hard to relate anything back to the board if you can't really feel what's going on. And
So for those reasons, it was a good idea to have them, so.
Yeah, and I just, I'm sorry.
Mike, the question is, this is cambered, that room's cambered.
Yes.
That room's smaller, it's not cambered. The meeting room upstairs that they used,
There are no cameras upstairs.
Nothing.
Fine, correct.
so I
Yep.
think we have to
But
really
what
kind
about
of camber a
scheduling?
couple of other rooms and.
I mean,
Yeah,
is it possible to just look at the calendar and say, these Mondays are open,
Right.
these Tuesdays are open, these Wednesdays, these Thursdays?
Are meetings
Can we
scheduled
reschedule?
per, on specific dates per charter, or are they?
No.
And I think that's, it was funny because when I saw this on on the agenda, I said to myself, man, because in the Senior Resource Committee meeting, we saw the camera on and, you know, we saw everything going
That's
that
so
day.
nice, because you don't know how many seniors are probably watching that at home going, oh, look what they do.
Yeah, and so the good part is that we were kind of like, wow, this is now a new process.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we were discussing it today.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's no, it's an informal process to book a meeting. Basically, hey, Kirby, is it available? And then it goes on the town calendar. So we could formalize that process a little bit to make sure that, you know, we're not double booking if possible. But there's no.
If possible, be in one of the two, or be in one of the rooms that have audio visual. I will say, if I may, Mr. Chair, I know that Drew has done a great job with and Aaron with the cable department stuff. Over there in the other room, they have it set that it automatically turns on, starts recording, and then when they come in the following day, they broadcast it and upload it and make it available on the website. So it might not be live if it's in the other room.
Correct.
But it will be available usually within 24 hours.
That's exactly right.
But Chad, the point I'm trying to make is that that's just recently changed. I mean,
Right,
it was,
right.
that thing was off for
Long time.
Oh,
a couple of
agreed.
years, 2-3
Yeah.
years.
And that was due to COVID,
Right,
I
nobody
think,
wanted to be in
mostly,
that
because
room.
nobody wanted to meet in
Right.
that room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that has me concerned is, you know, when we look at the planning department and the engineering department, there are several boards that have to work together, so to speak, with a schedule.
Correct.
You know, a developer comes in front of us, the planning department has to get involved, the heritage department has to get involved, the conservation commission has to get involved, and it can't, you know, if it's spread out, it's
Right.
gonna cost these developers, it's gonna aggravate the hell out of these developers that, oh, I started here and now I gotta wait 6 weeks, 8 weeks to
Right.
get a meeting with heritage or
Right.
conservation. So that,
I don't think,
you know, I think,
Okay, so, as I've
Oh.
been quietly sitting here listening,
but it helps with
geez, that's
transparency.
unusual.
so what I'm hearing is that they want something that's a little bit more palatable, something that's a little bit more convenient, and we need better scheduling. So let's start there.
Okay.
So Drew,
Good discussion.
figure out how to fix this. He is.
Oh, hey, Drew, how you doing?
Might be remotely.
All right, and you know, and let's take the next step forward. So that's what it sounds like. I've heard.
Great. Good.
Is that good?
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay.
That's great.
Thanks for that. All right, town minutes. I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes from June 20th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman,
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative.
to make a motion to reappoint Art Rugg as member of SNHPC.
Let's take Art and Deb at the same time.
And appoint Deb Levens as a member of SNHPC.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in the affirmative. Deb and Art, please see the clerk. Liaison reports. Anything new to report? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I attended the Senior Resource Committee meeting, and I will not mess up Mr. Town Manager's presentation, so I'm sure he'll say it much more eloquently than I will. So I will wait for his
report?
press release.
All righty. Anything else for liaisons?
I do for BudCom. So their last meeting, they just reviewed the budget process for both the town and the schools, as we will be coming into budget season shortly. And they also, there was discussion about Peter Curl staying on as a consultant to the school district.
Just can't get away, can he?
Unbelievable.
Okay.
That's it.
What'd you say, Deb?
I'm not going to repeat what she said.
Unbelievable.
All right, Assistant Town Manager report. We got the drought update. Nobody's lawn is growing, and is it time to turn off the sprinklers?
Okay.
Is this on, or?
You know what? It turns off after a while, but you can still, if you can still see it
Off
here.
after a while? Thanks. What kind of systems?
It's a beautiful screen.
Listen, that's, with electric rates doubling, it's a
Oh,
good
yeah,
system.
Yes.
Shut 50% of them off. Let's go.
So while Mike is trying to get it back on the screen, let me very quickly remind you that we do have an ordinance on the books. When we go into drought conditions, We can put lawn watering restrictions on just with 3 days' notice, which would be published in 2 places on our website, on the doors, and then in a paper. And so if the council wanted to enact the restrictions, there's 3 different levels. So we're definitely in drought status. The brown there is moderate drought. So any of those drought statuses, once you get to 01, the brown and down. So we satisfy our ordinance from that regard. The level 1 restriction would be the simplest. That is the lawn watering by odd addresses on odd days, right? Odd numbers days, evens. So, and you can't water between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. So if the council wants to do that, we can certainly have it ready. We'll put out the notices everywhere, and it could become effective on next Monday, so a week from today. Plenty of notice.
So I went to Northampton, Massachusetts for a wedding this weekend. When we were driving home, we drove through Gardner, Mass. In Gardner, they have signs, literal street signs, water ban, watering ban. Went through another community, watering ban. I mean, they're not flashing lights or anything else, watering ban. So,
Right.
what do you want to do?
Watering band.
I agree.
What level? If we start with odd and
Level,
even, we're not
level
meeting
1
it.
is the odd, even. Level 2 it gets a little more complicated. Odd addresses on Monday, Thursdays, even addresses on Tuesdays, Fridays.
I'm doing level 1.
Yeah.
Well, level one?
Okay.
Level 1. So level 1.
What's
Okay.
the enforcement?
Well, that we'll have to figure out.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not going to send the police out to tell people to turn it off. But what we're going to do is we're going to tell people that, there's a water ban.
conscious
And
of it.
let's,
Right.
let's.
The
make
first
a
violation is a warning, and then after that are
Yeah,
fines.
I'm just saying, I mean, the reason why I didn't speak up is just like, okay, we can do
Right.
this, but, I want people to try to,
Joe, thanks for volunteering. You'll be going back. Absolutely. And you'll be reporting back.
It's
Okay.
even on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Thanks for being the guy to step up. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll put it into effect. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Town manager report.
Mr. Chairman, a couple things just to update people on what I've been up to. I've been doing a lot of work on economic development, taking a number of meetings with real estate developers, talking about pending projects, talking with the State Division of Economic Development about one potential good-sized project. Had some contact with the Greater Derry Londonderry Chamber of Commerce, and I took a site walk to help sort out an enforcement issue. Had a great meeting with Jeff Rapsis up at the Aviation Museum. That's a really great spot that I enjoyed getting to know him and his staff up there. My thanks to them. Comings and goings. Suzanne Roy has worked for the fire department for 38 years, longer than I've been alive. She is retiring on August 5th. A great career, first for Londonderry PD, then for Londonderry Fire. My thanks to her. William Ryan Hart Jr., as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, is retiring effective August 5th. He summarized his service to the community tonight far better than I could ever do so. My thanks to him for his many years of service to the community. Kelly Walsh is our new town planner, and she starts work on July 25th. And my thanks to the planning department, Laura Gandia, Beth Morrison, and Amy Kizak. They have kept the trains running. They've done great work pulling double duty to cover the void that was left by Colleen Mayu when she left to go and work for the federal government.
And my understanding is Ms. Walsh is a Londonderry High School graduate.
Born and bred.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Really looking forward to her starting. Got the cost increases, they keep on coming. Manchester Waterworks is the latest vendor to give us notice of some increased costs. And we're continuing to work with Waste Management over their request for increased costs. A little bit of good news, might be the last bit of good news financially for a while. We closed out FY22 with a surplus of at least $1 million. I say at least because the invoices keep coming in. They are backdated to pertain to the fiscal year for which the services were incurred, and so I don't have final numbers for you yet, but it was a good year closed out on June 30th. Senior resources. This is something that Vice Chairman Green has been spearheading. It was an idea, I understand, of Deputy Chief Bernard to have a Senior Resources Expo, an event at the high school gymnasium where seniors can come, and not only seniors, but people who are caregivers for seniors and are looking for resources to help with things that seniors might be interested in. We've secured space for that. A big announcement is coming. I think the PD is going to take the lead on the advertising and trying to blast that out on social media. But there's so much energy that's already been put into this event, and I'm really looking forward to it. And lastly, the Lancaster Drive water line extension. That is something that's been we've been working on for a while. There have been a lot of legal issues. We finally worked through that. It is under construction and a long time coming for those residences on Lancaster Drive that have some of the highest PFAS contamination levels in town.
So, thank you, Mr. Town Manager. I just wanted to make a quick comment of the Senior Resources Committee Expo. And really what we would like to do is bring it to the council and just ask if you guys would support this effort, and if it's something that you guys feel is I guess follows what we've been trying to do, is support seniors in town and make sure that we bring them all the services that they could possibly take advantage of. So, and Jim Green, my cousin, has come to the meeting tonight. If there's any other questions that we want to bring to him, but really the committee's looking for us to kind of get behind this and talk it up and really support it. And there's going to be more of these, I believe. I think this committee, with the leadership of Jim Green, has really gone to new heights, and I want to congratulate you in public, Jim, for all the efforts. I mean, really, I've been on this committee for a while, and this really, he sparked new life into it, and we're doing really great things and bringing people that are interested into this committee now, and really doing more things like this. So I don't know, Jim, if you wanted to say anything further, or?
Yeah, I'll come up here so
Sure,
you can hear.
absolutely. Okay.
I really, let me see if I can do my elevator speech. When I worked for the Coast Guard,
We're
we
only
said,
going 6 floors, Jim.
I know, but you only had like 20 seconds with the commandant. What do you do to sell your program? Like, how can I take the search out of search and rescue? But and this is really evolved into something I think is really great for the town, because when we started off with all the things you might think of, the senior center, the police department, the fire department, but then we get into assessing. You guys are talking about tax abatements, and there's tax abatement provisions. When we talk about the building department, there's an AARP home fit guide to help seniors know what they need to do to make their homes safer. The planning department, there's a provision in the state and town provisions for accessible dwelling units to help people stay in town and to help some people finance improvements to their homes that'll help them stay in town. But then we got to community caregivers. I believe we contribute to community caregivers, and they do, I guess, all of the support things that we've been talking about for the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. If somebody needs help at home, whether it's shoveling or grass cutting or rides to the doctors, somebody just to come in and visit, somebody to do blood pressures and the rest of that. Community caregivers does that. Then there's the Greater Derry Community Health Services. They coordinate health issues for you. One stop, the senior goes there, and for all of your medical conditions, and I'm a charter member of the many medical conditions. For some reason, on my chart, they always put hemorrhoids first. I think that's bad. And
Oh, Jim,
finally,
I could go so many places with that.
no, it's just
Are you the straight man setting me up?
no. The problem is this is true. Anyway, I've got heart, diabetes, pulmonary, no, hemorrhoids, and the Center for Life Management, which we all have a link to, handles mental health issues.
Yep.
And I'll get off the thing. We've got Meals on Wheels. We've got the Rockingham County VNA is one of the groups that support us, but they can do a program for us during this event, I hope, where we can do a fall prevention class. In my community, I'm in a 55-plus community, we've had more people fall, and the fall is the beginning of your life being very limited. So that's why I'm all excited about this, and we really appreciate any support you give us. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, just to add really quick, is that this is one of those things that it's kind of like it's going to grow. And one of the things that we talk about a lot in the committee is making the town be more aware of the plight of a senior citizen in town, because we have one of the largest populations of senior citizens in the state of New Hampshire. We really want to even work towards like a 1-800 number that people can call, because again, some of these folks, they don't have computers, they haven't been brought up with those electronic means of communication, and besides the tax bills that we've talked about maybe sending some brochures with, where else could they go besides a telephone call and like a hotline? So these are the type of things we want to continue to work on. Yes, this is just the first of many, but as I told you on one of the emails, that's one of the things that are going to come forward. And the other thing is this is going to cost a little bit of money, and so that's kind of where I bring it to the council. And we have
We're
had
going into budget season.
Yep, exactly. We have had some monies that have been earmarked for senior use, and we're looking at the legalities of how we can actually use that.
Yeah,
As you remember.
those are there. I was able to confirm with the finance director that there is that source of funding that you referenced, and it is available.
Yeah. So so things like pamphlets, and all that. Things like Manning, possibly that 1-800 number, so that people can really get answers. I mean, if there are people that are in their homes and they can't get food, and there's a snowstorm or something happens, they can call. They can call the police department, but they can also call to see where all these resources that Jim were talking about, and we can have people that can connect the dots for them. So anyway, more to come, but this is just a jumping.
Joe, real quick question, Mr. Green. Has any towns done this before, this fair concept?
No,
Just curious.
No, we actually got it on, Jim, if you want to speak to that, we
Yeah,
kind of just developed.
Don't make Jim
Don't
get
make
up.
him
No,
get up.
stay right here.
Yeah, you can just speak to it.
I said, are there any other towns that do what we're trying to do? That you know of?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we were thinking is, because we had, let me just tell you where this came from.
Mhm.
So when Councilor Dolan was on and we had this water purifying
Yeah.
expo, there was a lot of interest in that. And we said, man, imagine all the interest in the water expo. Can you imagine all the folks that are seniors that really would like to come and find out more information about it? And really, once we get all those vendors and possible support companies in one spot, then that creates that momentum that more of us can kind of attach and get at least some phone numbers, some names, and start creating that guide that we were talking about. And when somebody calls that 1-800 number, we're even talking about committee members just manning it. Once a week we call and listen to it and work with Mike to try to help them. Look, I mean, we have to start somewhere. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of the plan, and we want to see how this will work out, and maybe there'll be more than just one a year. So
The way I look at it is we've always prided ourselves with the best equipment for the police, the best equipment for the fire.
Yep.
Our demographics are changing, and I think we should get behind this 100%.
Thank you
Let's
for
be
that
the
support.
best of the best.
yeah. Anybody else have any? You guys good with that? Us going full force with this?
Yep.
The committee.
It should be self-generating, the way they are like in Salem. They have health fairs all the time with their seniors.
Yep.
And they do it, it's self-funding because the vendors will pay to have a captured audience. of, you know, who they're looking for.
So, you know, and that's kind of what we're thinking about, maybe getting companies that are coming in there and showing their goods, maybe doing an entrance fee. I was talking about how when we do things in the marketing department at my company, we have like a diamond sponsor, we have a gold sponsor, silver sponsor, so they can make some kind of donations, and that fund will go in to help support this money that we already get from the taxpayers, but we can, you know, make it a little bit larger with those funds and do more and help more people. So, anyway.
All right, good beginning.
Good, thank you. Thank you,
All
guys.
right.
Thank you, guys.
I just have
Anything
one thing.
else?
Yeah, one thing, please. Mike, is it possible to get the agendas on like a Thursday for the council? Just so like if you have questions, you're not scrambling on Monday to try to get a hold of somebody. I know that
Yes, I'm happy to try to work on that. What I will say is it becomes difficult with a 2-week cycle, clearing the items from the last meeting and then turning our attention to the next meeting. And so, obviously, the goal should be to get the agenda out as quickly as possible. What I've found is it's not always that simple, but I'm happy to try to see if we can accelerate.
I mean, because even like a resident looking online, you know, by the time they find it and they go to it, they can't call anybody to get questions until Monday, and then it becomes a very tight.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible or not. I just thought it might be helpful.
I usually get it for approval late Wednesday or
Yeah,
Thursday.
yeah.
And
I
I
don't
approve it,
see it.
and I approve it almost immediately.
I don't see it until late Friday afternoon, personally.
Yeah, well, so typically it does not get posted publicly until sometime on Friday, and I can tell you, you know, a great deal. This is last week's agenda, and then this is this week's agenda. Even the small ones now, you know, a great deal of effort goes into compiling this information, putting it together, and then uploading it and getting it out.
Well, maybe it's not the full agenda that comes out early. It's just the outline in the front.
Oh, that's a good
And then
idea.
just say,
Yeah.
you know, for details will be listed. So this way, even if you have a question, you can call.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, oh, I saw that this was going to be on the agenda.
That's fair.
I can
Yeah.
find out about it.
That's a
Do
good
you know what I
idea.
mean? It just so even if it's just the
The first couple pages.
this part here. This
And then the
part.
contents follow.
Yep, that's certainly doable.
Yeah, and Kirby generally sends out an email to the council with the first agenda, and then the details follow later.
Yep.
So that's, you know, that shouldn't be a big deal. And as
Alright.
long, as soon as she gets it to me, it's within an hour usually that I approve it.
Yeah.
The other thing, I was just hoping that maybe at the next council meeting, that we could find out if Steve and the assessor guy ever figured out like how that was miscalculated, like what the problem was. I know we fixed the
Yes.
problem, okay?
Yes.
But did we ever figure out what happened?
We
and
have, and I know he's
I would like to
working
hear
on a
that.
presentation
Okay.
to address that. Yes.
And the other thing is I was wondering if you could put on the thing to look at, maybe looking at impact fees again.
Happy to do that. Yep.
If they're done properly, they work.
No, I'm not saying they don't work. When you look at the impact fees, look at the court cases, and look at the agreements we made coming out of the court cases. You know, it's not as easy as just putting impact fees back in. We need to see what the decisions were from the judiciary piece before we look at impact fees again.
Just saying we should.
Just making sure we look
No,
at
that's
the,
fine.
was a fun.
You know,
look at
Jim,
whatever
we
it
had-
is we
you
agreed
know
to.
we had to dig ourselves out of that.
Yeah, that was
Right, no, I understand. I'm
That's what it was,
just
a mess.
that was a fun
thinking-
rodeo to deal with.
Mr.
yeah.
Chairman, one last note. It came up at Old Home Day meeting tonight. It's time to get those booth and parade signups in. We're coming down to the wire on that. I believe the end of July is the deadline. And so get those in.
Yeah, folks, regarding Old Home Day, we need volunteers to pull this off. You know, thousands of people will be coming here. This is a major parade this year with all of the midterm elected people coming and everything.
Mr. Chairman, Lee just raised his hand.
So please, if you know somebody who's interested in getting involved, please have them see Katie Sullivan. She'll be more than happy to put you to work. With that, is there anything further?
Motion to adjourn.
So, second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, our next meeting is August 15th at 7 p.m. Thank you.